deal, so he learned to make the muffins himself with the raw ingredients to maximize profits. He'd wake up very early in the morning when other kids of his age were still lying on their beds and start baking with his makeshift equipment. Although this approach left a bit more change in his hands, he knew he was destined for much greater things. So he had to evolve. Sandile realized that the folks in his town wanted to look like the celebrities they saw on TV, all posh and cool, but couldn't afford the luxury. This observation prompted him to go into the sale of thrift clothes. He'd buy used clothes and shoes at cheaper rates, mend, clean, and perfume them to look presentable, and then sell them at a price that the lower and middle classes could afford. He charged people based on what he felt they could afford, while still making his own profits. The ambitious lad didn't need to bag an MBA degree to be a master when it came to business, persuasion, and money-making ideas. His street smartness and environment were enough to shape him into the man he'd later become. In high school, he was already recognized as a businessman by his teachers and classmates. Although some were concerned about his relative lack of interest in regular academic activities, others commended his drive. In 2011, he enrolled in Durban University of Technology at the age of 20 because he saw the institution as a means to scale higher to achieve his dream life. He quickly became influential and popular there due to his often attractive and out-of-the-box business ideas. It was around this time that he discovered what he felt was his first gold mine: Forex trading. He learned that Forex required buying and reselling currencies at the right time while taking advantage of exchange rates. Unlike his previous ventures, this business was convenient and required more mental skills than physical labor, so he wasn't going to let this opportunity slip past him. After studying the basics, he decided to go large rather than starting with something small, like most fresh Forex traders do. The problem was finding adequate capital to begin. Meanwhile, he felt time wasn't his best friend. So, out of desperation, he used his university tuition fee to plunge into Forex trading. A very bold and risky move that could have sunk him if it didn't pay off. Sandile began making huge profits from his Forex investments in the next few months, even though most first-time Forex traders usually incur losses during this period. Whether it was due to sheer luck or natural skills didn't matter. All he knew was that he was making money, way more money than a master's degree holder could make with a 9-to-5 job. He continued basking in wealth, and by the time he was 23 years old, he had become a self-proclaimed, self-made multimillionaire. The little boy from Umlazi, who sold low-budget muffins and second-hand clothes, began driving luxury cars and donning designer suits. He was motivated to not only maintain his wealth, but to acquire more. His success in Forex drew significant attention, and soon, one of the giants of the Forex world, George van der Riet, noticed him. Der Riet was moved by the young man's drive and financial genius, and decided to meet and form a partnership with him. Together, they created the Global Forex Institute, which they touted as a well-meaning platform with the mission of training ordinary South Africans on how to become prosperous with Forex trading. In short, the two men promised to guide success-driven people on how to make it through Forex, like Sandile. No degree, skills, or special criteria were required to enroll in the program. As long as you had the right mindset and were interested in escaping poverty, you were welcome to the Institute. Who would want to miss out on this so-called life-transforming opportunity? The fact that Sandile was once a regular guy from Umlazi helped sell the concept to the youths, who wanted to know the cheat codes. They also offered free introductory training classes, which drew thousands of youths to the program. However, to partake in the advanced classes, which supposedly contained the true proven secrets to financial freedom through Forex, you needed to pay a certain amount. Since the introductory classes were focused on promoting the bright, sweet side of Forex trading, many people wasted no time in breaking their banks and handing their savings to Sandile to work his magic. Sandile's flashy life and social media accounts, where he flexed his sports cars, luxury clothes, private jet, high-end restaurant visits, and vacations, made those who registered for his classes too awe-stricken to doubt him for a minute. They failed to see the danger signs of Forex and realize that only a handful of people really make it through Forex. The vast majority usually end up regretting why they didn't venture into a more predictable and straightforward business. Sandile didn't tell them this either because he wanted more people to pay for his classes. Reality dawned on Sandile's students when they kept trying everything he taught them in Forex without success. Many lost everything, and a few earned less than the money they paid for the classes. Meanwhile, Sandile had already built his empire and made a name for himself in South Africa's business scene, where he was regarded as an influential young financial guru. When they asked him why they weren't yet winning after all the money, time, and effort they'd put into Forex, he urged them to be patient and trust the process. Sandile Shezi became more popular and influential despite the growing dissatisfaction from his students. He had become a brand. One could easily bring down a man, but canceling a brand is an entirely different ballgame. He knew about his immunity, he knew about his gigantic influence. Still, Shezi was never one who relaxed in one spot. He wanted to keep soaring higher. It was that same personality and mindset that propelled him to where he was in the first place. The Sandile Shezi Foundation was made to look like the South African version of the Bill Gates Foundation on the outside. It was marketed as a philanthropic institution set up by Shezi, a self-made millionaire, to give back to the people. The foundation promised to promote education, healthcare, and job creation across Africa to help ordinary people become the next Sandile Shezi. The concept proved to be another success, and soon, Sandile wasn't only seen as someone who had made it out of the streets, but as the savior of South Africa. The scholarship, mentorship, and financial leadership programs advertised through his foundation served as an effective distraction from the noise and criticisms from his frustrated Forex students. He had become a fraudster who needed the foundation to maintain his public persona, and for a while, it worked well for him. Whenever someone said Shezi had scammed him through his Forex classes, another would point to the Sandile Shezi Foundation as proof of his good intentions and philanthropy. This perfect facade not only shielded him from public condemnation, but also turned the eyes of the police away from what he really was for some time. However, Sandile was no Robin Hood. Yes, he came from poverty, but he stole from the poor to enrich his now large pockets while making the poor believe he had them in his best interest. He made loud donations and charity events, even though no one could tell if they were real or staged. He posed with children and became a vibrant motivational speaker, giving pep talks to the youths about the benefits of financial freedom. His success, life, and activities were always covered in the news, and he made it to the front page of the big magazines. Naturally, many women wanted to be with him because he was rich, young, handsome, and influential. But Shezi wanted a lady of like mind who wouldn't flinch when she saw who he really was, and would not be afraid to get her hands dirty for him. The one woman who fitted this profile was Sandile Shezi. Without wasting much time, they got married and began to live together in Durban, even though Shezi's busy lifestyle often got him flying in and out of Durban. Although Shezi was fluent in English, he didn't know the definition of resting. He wanted to make more money, perhaps for his fifth generation. This drive, or greed as some would call it, pushed him to extend his tentacles to other business ventures. He invested in real estate, which brought him more wealth, and stumbled on a potential diamond mine, which was gradually replacing Forex. Cryptocurrency was now the hottest financial vehicle in town, and Sandile swore to steal its keys. 2021 was the beginning of the end for Sandile Shezi, as his foundation was no longer enough to mask his fraudulent practices. People had started to see through the illusion. No one could exactly point out how the foundation had helped their lives, or whoever they knew personally that has benefited from Shezi's so-called philanthropy. Consequently, the once muffled complaints of those who had invested in his fake Forex classes and cryptocurrency scheme became much louder. His empire began to crumble when one of his former business partners accused him of defrauding him of 500,000 rands, which was equivalent to over $30,000 through his Global Forex Institute. Such an accusation from a former associate was difficult to ignore or push under the carpet. It triggered a public uproar and attention from the police. The police quickly issued a warrant for Sandile Shezi's arrest. Desperate to protect his reputation, Sandile personally turned himself into the police for questioning, as he believed a more chaotic arrest would be bad for business. Nevertheless, various news outlets, including the ones that had once spoken highly of him, publicized the issue. He was later left off the hook by the police after paying bail fees, but only briefly. Another investor accused Shezi of scamming him of 200,000 rands after promising huge returns on investments, but leaving him with nothing. Again, Shezi found a way to shake off these allegations and beat the case. However, it was only one phase of a long trail of highly publicized police and court cases. Between 2021 and 2022, others filed lawsuits, both the less privileged and the wealthy, against Shezi on how he had ripped them off after they paid for his Forex classes. After countless police visits, bails, and negative news headlines linked to him, he merely wriggled himself out of police custody and prison. By this time, his name was more synonymous with fraud than with financial freedom. There were also reports that he was beginning to struggle financially. Although he wasn't as broke as he was before venturing into Forex, things weren't rosy for him anymore. Sandile blamed his messy financial situation on the pandemic, claiming the lockdown and global economic recession negatively affected the foreign exchange market. He also suspended his training classes for a while. However, as the ancient Greek saying goes, "Whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad," Shezi refused to give reason a chance. After his short hibernation, he decided to resume his fraudulent schemes. This time, he ran it like a Ponzi scheme. Instead of just outrightly pocketing the so-called training fees, he first gave the victims the impression that they were making profits. Then, they were encouraged to put in more money into the scheme. When they did, Shezi would then cart away the new, larger deposit. His wife, Sandile, was also complicit in this new scheme. The approach worked for some time because the investors received attractive dividends after their first deposits. When they failed to make profits during their next deposits, Sandile would advise them to be patient, that they'll receive even larger dividends than the first in the long run. Gradually, the youngest millionaire found his footing again in the South African financial world. Around this time, he developed interest in politics and founded the political party Vukanima Africa. In 2023, he decided to merge his party with another new political party, Arise South Africa, and declared his interest to contest in the 2024 presidential elections. He cited the need for the youths to be influential in the nation's affairs, and according to the leaders of both parties, collaborating for progress was the first step in the right direction. In the words of Mfo Dagada, the leader of Arise South Africa, by joining forces, we can become a stronger, better, and bigger political party, attracting more votes. Behind the scenes, Sandile Shezi kept tricking people into investing in his new financial scheme, and the older investors were beginning to run out of patience. One disgruntled investor, who was among the first to join the rebranded money-making scheme, tried to contact Shezi when he was convinced that something was not right. However, Shezi acted like he was too busy with his political activities and personal life to provide the anonymous man with adequate answers. This same man tried to reach Shezi's wife, hoping that she may be able to offer him listening ears. Still, his efforts were to no avail. Fed up with the repeated excuses and neglect, he decided to take the matter to the police. The authorities learned that the man had first invested 100,000 rands in Shezi's scheme and received befitting dividends. After his first profit, Shezi urged him to invest more money. This time, he invested 500,000 rands, but unlike the first time, the dividends reduced until he eventually got nothing. The issue was transferred to the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, popularly known as the Hawks. The Hawks are essentially South Africa's version of the FBI, who show no mercy when it comes to financial crimes, especially among high-profile people. After their investigations, they charged Shezi with fraud, and just like before, he handed himself to the authorities. The very next day, which was May 9th, Shezi was arraigned in the Alexandra Magistrates Court in Johannesburg, where he was later released on a 20,000 rands bail. Meanwhile, the Hawks kept their eyes on the Shezi family and kept doing their secret investigations. In November 2023, the then 30-year-old wife of Sandile Shezi, Sandile Shezi, was arrested in Fourways, Gauteng, on charges of fraud and money laundering. This arrest was linked to the earlier May case where her husband was charged with fraud. According to the spokesperson of Hawks Gauteng, Captain Tlangelani Rakotso, the arrest relates to a probe into an investment scheme where the suspect and her husband, Shezi, allegedly defrauded an investor of 600,000 rands in 2021. The Hawks gathered that Sandile was not just aware of her husband's criminal dealings, but also actively involved in the fraud. Her role in the scam was to use both online and on-air media to lure more people into the scheme. In the words of Captain Ricozzo, it is reported that the suspect Mkhize went on a community radio station where she allegedly encouraged members of the community to invest in the alleged fraudulent cryptocurrency scheme. Like her husband, she also appeared before the Alexandra's Magistrate Court, where she was tried and later released on a 5,000 rands bail. Since then, more people have complained about falling victims to the couple's fraudulent scheme. It's expected for the couple to face more police arrests, invitations and probes from the Hawks, and court cases in the following months. Although one could argue that the gravity of their crimes is a bit less than the fraudulent gang boss Ralph Stanfield and his wife Nicole Johnson, the Shezi couple have attracted similar hate and condemnation from the public. The once vibrant, self-proclaimed youngest millionaire from Umlazi has become a shadow of his former self. These days, he tries his best to avoid the spotlight as it now only reveals the darkness and disgrace surrounding him. It's even worse, because his wife and family haven't been spared from the ridicule and insults. Sometimes being physically locked up is better than being in a mental cage. That's the painful situation Sandile Shezi now finds himself